Hey, chat. How's it going? Welcome to another Real Good Thursday stream. Where as the music gets extra quiet. There we go. It always just likes to make me think everything breaks right as we go live. Welcome in for another Real Good stream. If you don't know what Real Good Thursdays is, it's when we stream on Thursday on my channels, but also on all the Real Good AI channels. If you don't know what Real Good AI is, it's a 501c3 nonprofit. We talk about it a lot, often on Thursdays. We also talked about it on the podcast with Mark and Wade. It's a 501c3 nonprofit that is trying to save you and everyone else from some of the experiences that you may or may not have had with AI entering your life in all the different ways that it is currently. We are led by our fearless leader, Dr. Mandy Meiskens, who is a PhD scientist. We have a team of PhD researchers doing science and developing programs like our Real Rating, which if you're interested, there's lots of info about that as well, to try and help you and everyone else figure out how to navigate this new landscape with all of the AI and all of the different forms that it is. It's here, whether you enjoy it or not, whether you're a fan or not, it's here either way. If you don't know, we do have a website with lots of really great stuff on it. We also have a merch store. You should absolutely check out the merch store. Oh man, I had it pulled up too. Mandy, do you remember the link for the merch store?
I mean, you can go to the website and it says shop at the top.
It's on the website. There it is. realgoodai.org/shop. See, I had it pulled up. Anyway, welcome to another Thursday stream. This is a special one. Sometimes it's just team members. We play games. We answer your questions. But every other week, generally, we have a guest. We've had some fascinating guests, and we will continue to have some fantastic guests with fantastic conversations. Today, we are joined by Jack Gang, who is currently a senior data science manager for Atlassian, works on some products that you might use at work. You've probably heard of. And along with Jack, we're going to have discussion today led by Dr. Amangomiri, and Dr. Mandy is here as well. And I'll be entertaining you with Minecraft for those of us who can't focus on only one thing at a time. But Amen, if you want to go ahead and lead the introductions, it's all yours.
Yeah, so hello everyone. Hello Jack. Thank you for giving us the time. So Jack, you, as Bob mentioned, you work for Atlassian. So can we go back a little bit and talk about your education and more specifically, what did you do for your studies?
Yeah, sure. So Amanda and I actually went to Princeton, I think, at the same time. Maybe we overlap. We certainly didn't know each
We
other back then.
overlapped, yeah.
But we met at an alumni event recently, which is why I'm here. And I went to Princeton coming out of a pretty small state public school, small boy in a big world at Princeton. And I took on the challenge of majoring in what we call ORFE, ORFE, which stands for Operations Research and Financial Engineering, which is a huge mouthful. And it's not a very common major, especially for undergrads. I think there's a few similar ones across the country. So
what is it about?
Talk through the details about what that is.
Yeah, because there's like operational, what's the two first letters and what is the financial engineering thing?
Yeah, so operations research and financial engineering, they're kind of different, but they use very similar skill sets, especially because Princeton is very, in my experience, like pretty theoretical school. So you learn, the skills that you learn can be applied to a lot of things. And in this case, the two use similar skill sets. So what is operations research? I think some examples of the best way to explain it is maybe think about like what people with operations research degrees do. A common one we always heard in freshman orientation was like the people who figure out air traffic control at airports and like that whole complex web of optimization, timing, delays. It's very, very messy. Any kind of like big optimization problems, airports, traffic, truck drivers even. So like some of the classes that were in this field were like queuing theory and things like that. Unsurprisingly at the time, this was around 2010, 2012, the less popular of the two halves, because financial engineering, especially for Princeton, being so close to New York, was what a lot of people did, and like candidly, that's what I did as well. and that's more on theoretically it's just a lot of applied math actually. The
Is it
actual finance
trading?
part, yeah,
Okay. Is it
yeah.
trading or is it is more economics? Like what is
I would
it?
say it's barely either of any. Like there was one, and this is what I mean. Princeton's a very theoretical school, and
Mhm.
there was one class, like pretty rigorous math class on options pricing. So that's like on the trading side. But then like some of our more famous classes were just on like time series analysis, which you can use it for finance, or you can it's just
Mm,
that's just a skill essentially, right?
mm,
So I would say, and then there was also an econometrics class, I think. I didn't take that, and but a lot of people in this department did go into trading at the time. Not sure what it's like now. Some people went into, this was always funny. People would go into investment banking and consulting because it's like, oh, financial engineering, investment banking. And it's like, actually, these two things have nothing to do with each other. It's
yeah,
like
really.
you're looking at like accounting statements versus doing like differential equations or something, you know.
I
But
see.
ultimately, it was a pretty rigorous department and had a lot of just like smart people coming out of it. So I think it just helped with job placement and things like that.
I see. And the typical, so did you do computing in this? Like more, I guess at our time, data science was not like taught that
Yeah.
much. Uh, so what type of like machine learning like computing did you do or did you study
Yeah,
at
I
that?
don't think that's the thing. I don't think there was much of that at all, or at least I didn't take it.
No,
From what I hear
yeah.
now, so jumping forward a little bit, they
Mm.
have just data science classes within the Orphe department, which is,
Yeah,
I think, really exciting. In terms of computing, a common thing what people did, which is what I did as well, is you took a minor, or we called it certificates. So we had a
mm,
minor in computer science,
I see.
which did help with some of the classes because you had to write some MATLAB and things like that. But that was a very common path to just kind of get kind of all the skills that you would want for, say, a trading career, things like that.
Mm. What's a trading career, again, for people who would be interested? What's trading career skills in term technical skills that are needed for the trading career?
This is so interesting because, like, I think there's a lot of stuff on the internet these days about like how hard these interviews can be, and
Mhm.
a lot of interviews, it's a lot of like probability and just like not quite brain teasers, but like think like brain teasers times 10, like difficult brain teasers. Um,
Mhm.
I remember there was one that I, in my interview loop, similar to these types of questions where it's like, you have a basketball, and a basketball has like certain lines on it, and there's like corners where like the lines cross.
Mhm.
Imagine you're an
Mhm.
ant on the basketball, and you're like, and you walk for like 10 cycles of a basketball. How many corners will you touch if you just walk randomly? It's like
Oh
pretty
God.
wild probability stuff like that. And I
Yikes.
think they're really testing like your math brain in a sense. And then on top of that, some of these firms will also just do your normal like computer science, like software engineering type of interview as well on top of that. So you need a little bit of both to succeed through these
Mhm.
interview loops. And then once you get there, I think every firm does things very differently in terms of the skills you actually use on the job.
I see, I see. So I know also that after that you did an MBA. Did you do it straight after undergrad, bachelor, or you waited a little bit and worked before going back to school? And why did
Yeah.
you do an MBA?
Yeah. So this is a I think this was a I am happy with this career choice I did because I
Mhm.
was about 2 years into trading. So I was pretty young. And I was like, I like this, but I'm not sure if this is going to be for me when I'm like older, more settled down, etc. It's a little bit like stressful, like with the amount of money we're trading. Like pay is like somewhat unstable, like bonuses can differ a lot, things like that. And I was like, I probably want something more stable in the future, which is where I am now.
Mhm.
But going back again, so like, why did I choose to do an MBA? Well, that's kind of one of the reasons people think about with an MBA is like I want to switch careers. I want to open up more opportunities. And at the time, I didn't want to give up my trading career just yet. So I actually did the part-time evening program at Chicago Booth. And I was young for that because most people who do part-time MBA programs are on the older side. They have like 5 to 7 years of work experience and
I
they're
see.
working while doing
Yeah.
it. And it was like kind of a special program for like younger part-time people. There were maybe a cohort of 20 of us. So I chose to do that because I figured, well, I'm not really sure what I want to do. Maybe it's tech. I think at that point, I thought it made sense given my skills. Maybe it's just business in general, some kind of analytics role, whatever. Maybe it's finance. Maybe I just want to go work at a bank, like versus a trading firm. And the MBA opens up a lot of options. And I was also lucky because when I was halfway through the program, they started a new program at UChicago where you could get a dual degree MBA plus Master's in Computer Science. And I was like, well, that just opens up even more opportunities. And I think it cost like one extra class. So it didn't really cost me anything else extra. So I picked up both of those degrees, and that kind of really helped the pivot into tech for sure.
I see.
Before we get too far along, can I ask an uninformed question? Just because I'm trying to picture all of this. What does doing the job of trading look like? I guess I imagine trading, I think of like movies like Wolf of Wall Street or like, I don't know, right? I imagine you did not get all of this mathematical education to go and scream into a phone at someone and do a bunch of cocaine or something. Like what does that job actually look like?
It's funny, when I started at Atlassian, we do like an intro blog. And in my intro blog, I was like, hey, I came from trading. And then in my blog, I was like,
how much cocaine did you do?
Actually, like, what do you think it is? And it was exactly like what you said.
Right.
And
So can I add something from Bob's question? So my reference also from, I don't know anything about finance except two movies, The Big Short and The Wolf of Wall Street. And it corresponds to kind of the time where you were. I mean, Big Short was after the financial crisis, but you kind of traded after when it was like low, right? The financial crisis was behind us, but still we felt the effect. So yeah, I'm curious, how is it like we saw in movies where either you do cocaine and scream on phones, or you bet on people screwing their companies and buy them when they are low? So tell us, what's the typical day of Jack Gang there?
It was definitely behind us at that point, but I think an important part of my career that I got to see a little bit of this was before I went into proprietary trading, which is what we call these like small, like elite trading firms or whatever. I did have a stint at a big investment bank in New York. I was at Credit Suisse at the time, rest in peace, they are no longer with us. That's what happens with some of these banks. I interned there. I did like the banking internship. I think even at that time, 2011, there were still remnants of that culture of like the financial crisis, but everything was cracking down. It was like, whether it was like, they used to like give us BlackBerry, crazy thinking about that. We didn't even get BlackBerries. They're cutting costs, everything. Some of the bigger traders, there was a lot of government regulation at the time where it was like, you guys at these big banks cannot be making these bets, which is what led to 2008.
So much in 2008, right? That's it.
You guys can't be holding this risk to like, you are what we call sell side. You are providing a service for other investors. You cannot be actually making bets in trading because what happens in 2008, right? But there were still remnants of that. Like some of the teams I interned on, there was like a options trading firm or a team like in Credit Suisse, and they were like, oh yeah, we still like hold some risk. We have some opinions on things, but it was like, it's very limited, right? Funnily enough though, that was actually what led me to leave sell side trading, because I think I went into that and I was like, oh, this is nothing like trading. Like I don't get to like take risk. I don't get to have ideas. It's very much just like interacting with like Fidelity and like whatever, and just like making sure their orders get executed and all these things. And I'm like, that's a valuable service. I'm not saying that it's actually probably more valuable than trading. But at the time I was 22 and I was like excited, and I was like, I want to like show the world that I'm smart, whatever, right? And so that's when I jumped to proprietary trading, which is where I spent most of my career. Which, explaining what that is, essentially, think of, there's like a guy who has like $100 million and he starts a trading firm, and you're just trading his money to make more money. And that kind of gets into why I left as well, because I think as I got older, the meaning of work kind of started to matter for me a little bit more. And that's literally what proprietary trading is. You have a guy with a bunch of money, and you're trying to make more money for him.
So basically,
and he pays you
their money.
Yeah.
So they give you money, and what do? You give them like advice or where to invest it, or you take it and you invest it for them, and then basically take a cut and
Yeah, it's
and
basically the latter, but I think most of the bigger firms, I would call it less investing and more, it's all algorithmic. So it's all like high frequency trading, millions of trades a day, uh, like computer algorithms that trade all these things around the world, make a penny a billion times a day, and you're very
Mm.
rich, right? That kind of trading. And so
And
all of
software,
yeah,
you were developing the software, or you
exactly.
are like
Both.
applying the software?
So
Ah.
that's why going back to the interview process, you need to have the knowledge of like understanding the logic, the math, the psychology even of trading. But
Mm.
you also had to have the technical skills to like, well, do the analysis in Python and then write the code in C++, and like even sometimes like deal with hardware, which is near the end of my career, that's where everything was going, using uh, essentially like GPUs to
Mm.
make the trading even faster, right?
Interesting.
So yeah.
So it really is like a volume optimization thing of it's more valuable to just do more trades because you're making pennies a trade or
Yeah,
whatever.
if you can win 52% of the time and you
That's
can
good.
just repeat that, it's the same thing as like counting cards. And this is why people who like play
Gambling,
poker or
basically.
play blackjack, like traders, there's a lot of connect. It's like people who count cards at a casino. It's the same thing. They have a 51% edge and they just do
Yeah,
it
so
for.
is it reactionary? Are you like taking inputs of like this price went up, this price went down, this is triggering trades, or is it like predictive and you're just playing your algorithm is making these trades based on your I don't know, sort of market analysis or whatever.
It's both, and I think different firms
Interesting.
specialize at different ones. So the reactionary stuff is very simple. It's it's like uh, for example, we're talking about in today's terms, like there's news about some AI regulation that's going to move the price of NVIDIA,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And natural language processing, parsing that information in microseconds, and getting to NVIDIA before anyone else does. So
Right.
that's like the speed game, right, of like reaction. And we're literally talking about microseconds and nanoseconds for that. And then, but then on the predictive side, I think there's definitely a lot there. And that can go from, again, short term, like we think these two things could be correlated. So if one moves, the other one move. Or it could be very more like deeper analysis of like, hey, looking at these companies' financial statements and things like that, and what's going on in the world, we have a bet for this company to whatever, right? So it really ranges, and different firms. This is why there's a reason there's so many firms, is that they all have different specialties.
So they're not everyone's not all just trading the same stuff trying to beat each other necessarily. It's really is kind of nuanced and different in each different whatever each different firm is focused on or good at
Yeah,
or
for sure.
whatever. Interesting. I would never have I mean, from the movies you would never get that, but I don't know where else I would have gleaned that information from. That's fascinating.
Okay, so I have potentially a disrespectful question. The way you just described that, it reminded me of like what people talk about with crypto. Did you also do crypto, or is that how do you feel about that?
So
Yeah,
I'll
tell
tell a
us.
story of how we traded crypto, because this was
This would have
I
been
think it was
like
like
the
2013 or
early days of
2015
crypto, huh?
ish, and of course we were trading crypto. The answer is of course,
Okay.
because like at the time it was like, who wasn't, right? But the crazy part about crypto at the time is that it was even more unregulated than it is now. Absolute Wild West, right? You had these
Do you
like
think that it's
crypto
regulated?
exchanges, unregulated.
Well, it is more regulated now than it used to
It
be,
is
but that
now.
doesn't mean very much, but it is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like I
Yeah.
think more
So like,
security or
I don't
guarantees.
even know if you all remember these, like Mt. Gox. Do you remember what that is? That was like one of the OG crypto exchanges that blew up, right? So
No.
they were like the biggest crypto exchange back then. Like it wasn't Coinbase or anything like that. Coinbase was just a wallet or whatever, right? And you had all these exchanges who just were completely unregulated, trading Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple. Those were the three at the time. And it was so inefficient that like you could just look at the two exchanges and they would be off by like $5, the price of Bitcoin. So in terms of the arbitrage, you could just do buy here, sell here, you just instantly make money, right? But why didn't people do that? Well, at the time, it was like the hard part was like wiring money to these exchanges and making sure it was all. Oop, this ran out, but making sure this was all like secure, essentially. And we had traders who, again, my firm at the time, very much involved in writing algorithms, fast, like high frequency trading. We were like, no, stop writing your code, go sit there and click. Like click and transfer money, click and buy these things from these exchanges. And we were making like millions at a time. It was just absolute insanity. And we had people working overnight because crypto never closed, just clicking. Like buying here, selling here, buying here, selling here, transferring money. Obviously, it's a lot more efficient now. But that was how kind of crazy it was back then.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of, I mean, I don't even actually know the details of the regulations, but that's part of the thing about it being regulated at all is like, that sounds like the equivalent of there's some guy who tells you, you know, he posts a tweet about, oh, it costs this much, and you Venmo him whatever, some insane amount of money. You Venmo him $100,000 and you're like, buy this, buy that, sell this. And it's just going off into the ether, right? They're not into bank accounts necessarily or anything. It's just money that could disappear, but you're doing that from an official trading firm.
Hacked. That's why Mt. Gox went down. They got hacked big time, and then they just had to shut down. So that was
okay. So follow-up question. What about now? Can we make the same like $5 difference and buy crypto, or what's the regulation that happened now?
The equivalent is now. It's prediction markets. That's the equivalent now.
Oh my God!
Like Kalshi and stuff.
You go to Poly Market and you go to Kalshi, the two big ones. You can find like what NBA playoffs are happening right now, right?
Yeah.
You can find like 1% to 2% differences sometimes, but like you have to kind of act fast a little bit. But that's the equivalent right now of what we had then is prediction markets.
But I don't think it will stay though. Do you think, as like a former trader, that these predictive markets are going to not be regulated like this? They are not like gambling or casino kind of online casinos?
I have a lot of thoughts about this. I feel like like there's all this stuff about like insider trading. Prediction markets, like the stories are absolutely insane, right? It's like some obscure thing that you never thought was going to happen happens, and it's like someone made a big bet right before, and it's like, okay, someone told someone, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how they can regulate it, really. Like, I think that's the weird thing about prediction markets is like, okay, they have some regulations, like you can't bet on people dying. Good, like we should not do that. But then like other things, it's like insider trading, like what was it? I think there was one that was like some press secretary speaks for more than 45 minutes, and she spoke for 46 minutes exactly, and looked at the clock and was like, "I'm done." How crazy is that, right? With the insider trading, how do you regulate that? You know?
Yeah. That's insane. Yeah, and also the inside trading of like. Also in the regular markets as well. Like I know that there's a website, I read about it recently, that like some people follow what the lawmakers are invested in.
Oh yeah.
There's a startup. There's like an AI startup, of course, that does this. Yeah.
Just put your money and they follow whoever politician is investing in whatever, and turns out like this is a good
really good.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Nancy Pelosi only makes money in the stock market. That's wild.
Her trades only win.
Couldn't tell you why.
So I don't know. I think there's a lot of as advanced as the financial markets are in 2026, there are still so many like inefficiencies, places where people can cheat, and that's just like a side effect of capitalism in a sense.
Yeah. So when did you leave this whole world of finance and trading?
Yeah.
And
I think my timing was pretty good. I left in 2021. That was when all the tech companies were losing their minds and just hiring everyone. That's partly what's leading to like the layoffs in the last 2 years, right? And I didn't know that. I was just like, hey, it's time. Honestly, for me, the trigger was I was at a firm at the time, and like these firms like the culture can get like pretty rough, toxic, etc. And I think something that people were realizing then is like the pandemic brought out like the worst in like the worst employers, right?
Oh,
So it's like the ways that they were trying to get me to go back into the office early, like things like that. I was like, this is it. Like I already knew that I was eventually not gonna like this. Maybe that was the time. And at the time, tech was hiring, and everyone was like, tech culture is so good, like it's so safe, and all these things. And I was like, sure.
Mm.
And it worked because back then, like, yeah, they would take someone with like a background like mine who had the skills, had the education, had zero tech or even say business experience, right? And be like, sure, we'll give you a shot and hire you as a senior data scientist at Atlassian. That does not exist anymore. Like as a manager now, and I've been like part of the hiring process over the last few years, the bar has just been like, no, you need to be experienced. It's the joke that Gen Z likes to tell, right? It's like you need 10 years of experience for a job that we're only that is like junior or something, right?
Right.
So it's like these career switchers it's actually really, really hard now, unfortunately.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about what you do at Atlassian. So what is Atlassian? I know it's known, but not from everyone. And I think their product is more known than the company itself.
Yeah.
So what is it?
I feel like with Atlassian, it's like depending on what crowd I'm talking to, I'll mention different products, right?
Yeah.
If I'm talking to like tech people, I'll be like, it's the Jira company. It's the company where you like, you know, do project management on your code and like commits and whatever. If I'm talking to people not in tech, I think the easiest one is actually it's the company that bought Trello. Trello is it's getting less popular now, but it's been around for, and I know a lot. So I work on Trello, which is why I'm talking about it too.
Okay.
I currently lead data science for all of Trello as one of my half of my job. And I started out as a senior data scientist on Trello as well. So I have a lot of love for it. And it's like just your usual Kanban board tool. People use it to like do project management work. People use it to plan their wedding, do whatever. It's a to-do list.
So it's like a software? What is it exactly?
Yeah, it's just like a web app. There's a mobile app as well. Very easy to use. Like I think Trello is kind of the black sheep of Atlassian in that like as an acquisition, we've always done things differently. And part of it, for the better, is that our app is really easy to use, unlike some of our other products that can get really complicated with all the menus and things like that. Trello, you open it, you have no idea what it is, you can figure out how to use it. You just drag things around, make some cards, you have whatever use case you want. So, but what Atlassian does, so what these things have in common is we make tools for teamwork. So for people, we make tools to help people work more together more efficiently, whatever it might be. Particularly, we make software, which I guess when we talk about AI, that's an important piece. That we make software, and Atlassian's been around since 2007 or 2009, when Atlassian made like the first like ticketing system for writing code and things like that, and that was Jira, right? Confluence is another one of our biggest products. So I lead half of Confluence data science and all of Trello data scientists. That's my job right now. And Confluence is essentially like a knowledge base, like a wiki. Like think of an internal company wiki, but better, I guess. So that's what Atlassian does.
I see.
Yeah.
So who are your clients? So is it like an open kind of like you can buy it as an individual, or it's more serving like big companies and other? Is it like, I guess, is it your competitor? What's the name? Salesforce is your competitor or not really? You don't do
we
the
have
same.
competitors all over the place. Like Notion is a big competitor of Confluence, for example. Salesforce competes with some of our things. To answer your question, I think it depends. We have a suite of products. Some of them are better for enterprises. I would say Trello is better for small teams or individuals. And some you can do for both. We do get a lot of our business from big enterprise companies. And in a sense, like that's our moat of this business, of just like these long relationships with like I think it's like NVIDIA and like these places who use our tools, and they're kind of integrated in the system. Just like you said with Salesforce, right? Sales teams, when they're managing their client set, they think about Salesforce. For us, it's like when Jira is probably our stickiest product. If you have any software engineering team who's like managing your code, it's like you're probably using Jira or you've used it before.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what the company does as a whole, but you're a data scientist, right? So how does data science play into that, and what sort of things are you working on?
Yeah. Where are the data? What data do you use?
Yeah. So first, there's a lot of different types of data science, as I've learned in my now 5 years in the industry. When I switched from trading, I had no idea about any of this, and I was like, just give me a job, like whatever. I'm like, I'm pretty technical, so maybe put me in something technical. Because there's definitely more and less technical parts of data science. They did not do that. They put me in product data science, which is where I've been this whole time, and I would argue it's probably the least technical, but I ended up loving it so much. So product data science essentially is you're building a product very broadly, like an engineering team, a product manager, whatever, a company is building a product, and product data science helps everyone make decisions on how to build the product or even what products to build, and which can range from things like what color should this button be to like what customers are our target audience for this to how much should we charge, like everything related to
So is it
whatever
user
this product.
experience kind of
Yeah.
related?
Yeah. So like the data that we use would be like, hey, if I'm trying to think of an example. Actually, we're on like we're streaming right now. So like, let's talk about Twitch. So like, what would product data science do at Twitch? So it's like they would analyze like, oh, how many messages are sent per month, per channel, and what does that trend mean? Or like specific buttons. Like I'm staring at it like. There's a little box that's floating telling me to collect my points for the channel, right? And it's like, this is a really specific example. I think it's a good one. It's like that box right now on Twitch, it like wiggles to remind you, right? And it's like when you click it, you get your channel points. That wiggling effect, someone had to think about that and be like, is that a good idea? And then the data scientist can help measure how much of a good idea that was. So maybe the first version of that wiggling box didn't wiggle, and they ran an experiment, an A/B test, like we call it, and see, okay, after we add in the wiggling effect, how much more likely are people to click that thing? And but also, is anyone annoyed by it? Like, is our review rates down, or our chat rates down because now there's a wiggling thing on the screen? So a data scientist looks at all these specific things for a feature as small as that to understand if it's the right thing to do.
I see. You mentioned A/B testing. Can you explain what is A/B testing, and is it the tool that you use in order to take the decisions that you take?
A/B testing essentially is, it's actually really funny. When I was hiring last year, I interviewed a data scientist at Twitch who A/B tested the entire channel points feature. That was his job. It was a really interesting conversation. This is why I like interviewing sometimes. And so again, going on with that example, it's called A/B because there's two variants, and it's usually like a control or a treatment, like as an experiment. So this was way in the early days of Twitch. There were no channel points, and they essentially released channel points to about half of the channels. They didn't do it by user, they did it by channel. So like some channels had this new feature called channel points and other channels didn't. And you run that experiment or A/B test for a few weeks, or depending on how many users you have. And then you can learn essentially what that did. You can look at all your metrics, like engagement, like view time, people swiping their credit card for subscriptions and things like that. How does that affect everything? And I think it's a really interesting problem, because even for this channel points thing, I think a lot of people, the leadership at Twitch at the time, they were worried that by introducing this new like fun currency, people would subscribe less. People would pay less for the actual paid part. And they had to iterate on this multiple times to get that sweet spot where it's like it didn't cannibalize like the actual dollars that Twitch was earning, but it still increased engagement. And to do this every time, it's like every little change, A/B test. It's like we have this stable state, make a small change, A/B test.
Is there, in your experience with this sort of stuff, is there usually an answer, or do you frequently get results where it's like, they're kind of the same? Do whatever you like.
They're kind of the same, and that's where, I mean, different companies, I think this depends on your company culture and leadership. In those cases, sometimes it's just like someone just decides, right? Or I think like if you follow like, if it's a very data-driven culture, it might just be like, then don't ship it, because why risks other things if we don't really know what this is going to do and it's not really changing much.
I see. So another question I had was, how do you differentiate between like some noise in your testing or seasonal trends, for example? As you mentioned, like something would be like important at some point and then less for how do you basically differentiate between that in like you said you do like a monthly active usage kind of for the product, so how do you do that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is going back to like, I actually think a lot of the things I learned at Princeton are pretty valuable. Like I mentioned things like time series analysis. That's really important with the seasonality and things like that. And I think in the past few years before this AI stuff, it was pretty straightforward. It's like, hey, during the holidays, people use your product less. During weekends, no one uses your products because they're not at work. I think a really interesting one, this is an interesting one where someone had to do a whole deep dive on this because it was confusing a lot of people. Easter. So Easter is a big holiday across the world. And in some countries, you get a lot of time off for Easter, which not here, but in other countries you do.
We have two,
which means again, if you're talking about these teamwork software, you're going to see a dip in usage, right? But the problem with Easter is it changes every year what time it is, right? And for example, it's sometimes in March, sometimes it's in April, or it's like near the end of March or something, right? And when we're doing reporting on like usage and things like that, it's like, oh my gosh, why do our March numbers look so much worse than last year's March numbers? And it's like, oh, it's actually, well, because Easter was like in March this year versus last year it was in April. But it's like, that's not that intuitive. Like after that, we did this analysis. Now it's something we always think about when we're looking at March and April performance. But before that, it was like, well, that's weird. Like it's that seasonality, it's very hard to actually pinpoint, right? So I think these are really interesting things with like how the data can change with just like, I think holidays is a really big one, especially for an international company where maybe it's a holiday that's not even celebrated in your country and you have to kind of like be aware of it.
So we do have a question from YouTube that I want to pass along. As a product manager, but I've thought about data science, how does someone get into something like this? Learn about it and change.
I think this is a really interesting question because I've worked with a lot of product managers in my career here, and there's a wide range of, I would say, data fluency, like among all the product managers I've worked with. And some of them I think could be borderline data scientists already. So I think this is a good question in that it's not like two completely different things. It's actually quite easy to make the transition. And a product manager who, let's say, can write SQL, which is a pretty like low bar in terms of like technical ability compared to like writing software. If you can do that, you already can do so much more than some other product managers. And then if you're very rigorous about making decisions with a data-driven mindset, like when I was saying, right? If you see the data shows that it's not good, you don't like you're not like, oh, like, but my gut tells me, my heart tells me that this is the
Yeah.
right thing to do. Like, I think there are places for that. Like some of the biggest visionaries in the world in terms of what is like the iPhone is a great example of this. There was clearly no data to show that this would take off, like when it
Yeah.
first came out, right? Sometimes you do need to trust the gut and the heart. But I think to be a product manager who wants to be a data scientist, things like that, you go in the other direction where you're like very much about like that optimization mindset of like
Data
how
driven.
you build.
I see, I see. Another question that comes often, and since we have you as a hiring manager, is it as important nowadays, specifically throughout your career, the skills of computing versus using Claude, Gemini, whatever, to do the coding for us? Would you say that this is skills that like you have to learn and you have to do, or like no, you have to like let's embrace the AI of it and like let's just use the AI to do all the coding for us? Like where do you sit, or where your company also sits
Yeah.
on that?
I think the industry is at an inflection point there. I think a lot of the hiring and interview processes are still very much old school.
Oh,
Like
this
I know some
is just
people who recently got jobs at Google and things like that as data scientists, and the interviews are still is exactly the same. It's like testing your stats, machine learning knowledge, testing your SQL, testing your Python knowledge, and whatever, right? In the interview, they expect you to talk about how you have leveraged AI in some of your day-to-day work, but you still need to know the stuff. Whether that is going to change, I'm not really sure. I think it's a bigger question than just for data science or just for software engineering. I think the entire industry almost has to look at it together, because behind this question of like, how should we test to see if a data scientist will be good when we hire them, there's a more existential question of, do data scientists even exist? What roles exist in a world where a product manager can talk to an agent and it can give you a badly written data analysis in 1 minute?
yeah.
But like, if they believe that that's a good analysis, do you even need data scientists, right? So that's why the question is like, it's a much bigger question than just like hiring.
And would you use it in your everyday life? Like your data scientists and other colleagues use these like code writers, like the one with Claude or whatever, to do the everyday work, or it's like you start from there as a starting point and then you do it by hand? What I'm saying is like, do you see already this automatization of the use of LLMs
Yeah,
and AI?
100%. And I think right now it's like the industry is not really sure like what that means. Does that mean that everyone should just produce 10 times as much work?
Yeah, the productivity,
Like,
yeah.
which is not something I don't. I think that's like a very dystopian way to look at it. But that's what's happening right now. And like as a manager, I think one, I'm getting back into like actual doing the work because it's so much easier now, right? Plus, I came from being an IC, so I think I already still have some of those skills. But I think as a manager, something I'm doing for my team, like my reports, is I can't predict the future. And I don't know whether our jobs will exist in a year or 5 years. But what I'm encouraging them to do is to like learn the stuff. Like I don't like, if they ask me, am I just replacing myself? I'm like, let's not worry about that. Like it's above our pay grade. It's above everyone's pay grade. But what I do know is like it's not hard, it's not a bad thing for you to learn the skills. And I think like, especially within society, like there's a, and I think this is like a different conversation than say like, is AI good for society and things like that? Because I think like, especially with some of my younger reports, they look on social media, they see how AI is perceived, and they have these strong beliefs, and then their manager's telling them to learn it, right? But I think like I empathize with them because to me it's different. Like ultimately, like until the world changes, like we gotta work, we gotta like pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
There's a person on my team who's leading so much of like the AI adoption efforts within our entire data science org. He reports to me. He lives in Arkansas, where no one talks about AI, because we're a remote company. And he loves using AI at work, but then he's also very honest with me. He says, I think it's terrible for society, but I have 3 kids and a wife.
Yeah.
And I gotta pay the bills, right? And so I think like that's something that people are wrestling with a lot, for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's understandable. But what about so Atlassian, I think they have an LLM. Is it called Atlassian Intelligence?
Yeah, Rovo is what we call it now. Yeah,
Oh, okay. What does it stand
plastered all
for?
over our Williams racing cars. I saw a comment about that in the chat. Things like that.
So what do you do with this LLM? Like, be like, what does it measure or what does it do? Like,
I think what makes Atlassian's Rovo special is, I think Confluence is a good example of this. Confluence, again, it's a wiki. It's a knowledge base for your work. Let's say you work at a decently sized company. There's a lot of documentation about various things. There's things that you've written, like I have written analyses and pages. And Rovo is a native way to like, so it's not like, hey, I'm working on a project. I open up like chatgpt.com and start like talking to it. What does it know about me? Well, whatever, I've talked to it before, but it knows nothing about my work, right? Not unless I like really tell it everything. But the way,
which is not
Atlassian's main selling
acceptable at
point-
all.
Yeah, Atlassian's main selling point is like, well, you're already connected to all these apps in your day-to-day work. Rovo just like gets all of that already. It doesn't get your personal stuff, but from a work perspective, it's like you open this thing and it's like, oh, you're a data science manager at Atlassian, and you've written analyses on this, so you know about this, and so you can imagine how it can be a little bit. It just has much stronger context because of that.
For sure. So, how do you ensure that these AI models, like driving product features, remain like robust and don't introduce like biases into workflows or hallucinations? I mean, we've seen crazy things.
For example, in the news right now, I think McDonald's chatbot was telling people Python answers instead of just
I've heard about
helping them
this.
order. Yeah,
I heard about this joke. It's like, hey, you don't have enough tokens to get something to write you code. Talk to the Chipotle or McDonald's chatbot.
So your Rovo can have hallucinations and start like, oh, I read recently, I think it was yesterday, that one agent, AI agent, wiped out a company's, I think it was OpenAI or whatever, ChatGPT, erased the company database of the whole company. Yeah, that's crazy. So how do you ensure that you keep your Rovo on leash instead of like letting it like wander around and do whatever?
I think there's like a whole spectrum of this. On one hand, there's like the more catastrophic things like you just said. And I do think like there are company-wide or like model-wide efforts for this, where it's like, hey, like by default, it should not like overwrite files. Like you have to give it explicit permission every time. Or one that's funny is like, if you give it a prompt that tells it to impersonate someone, it like will reject you. But as with all of these, this was like literally 3 years ago when ChatGPT first came out. You can easily talk your way around that. Be like,
yes,
okay, don't impersonate them, but pretend that I am them, or like whatever.
I'm writing a book about them.
Yeah, exactly, right. So, and then you have the more subtle things, which is like you hallucinate like a number in an analysis, and it makes a product decision, right? How do you even catch that? And that part, I think, at least at my company, like we are very actively like data science leadership. We're like constantly talking about this because some random person will just like write a deep dive analysis using our tables that's just wrong and present it to leadership, and then we have to the wording we're saying is like, we don't want data science to be a janitorial job where we're just cleaning up people's junk and slop, right? So how do we like put the guardrails on so that yes, they can use this to make them more efficient, to automate some things, but like pump the brakes if you're like just going to never, if you're just gonna give it a one-line prompt and expect it to solve like your entire strategy roadmap for a year.
I see. But how do you check that? Is it based on like trust and principles kind of thing? How do you check that? Like you don't have no idea. It's a big company, so you can
Yeah.
have tasks. I just prompt it and go on holiday while the
Yeah.
the
I think that the thing
uh,
that's a little bit dystopian about all this is like, because these agents and these AIs, they're working much faster than our brains can process and across bigger spaces. The only, or at least from what we've seen, like the only way for us to check that is to build more AI around it, that's what's dystopian about all of this, right? Is like a human cannot check these things. So how do we build like AI skills and things like that to check other AI skills? But then at what point it's built on each other, right? So I think, yeah, I don't know. I think we're still in the weeds as a world.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I
that's
said almost an industry. This is not this is a world problem, right? It affects everyone in society, and I think we're still very much in the weeds of how to figure out this.
yeah.
I absolutely agree with you. I just have to plug for our viewers that are watching. This is why, in the research that we're doing at Real Good AI, we're replacing neural networks with things that are more understandable, like Gaussian process models, is what we're working on right now. And so the theory would be that it would tell you, like, at least data attribution to be like, this is where I'm getting this from. And so at that point, we would be able to check it in some reasonable fashion.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I see other questions. What's the biggest opportunity for generative AI in product analytics itself? Like, what do you see this
The
would
biggest,
bring?
like the easiest win, it's so easy. That's the easiest. It's writing SQL. Like, things like that. It's like you're not like building an app with Java or whatever. It's a query. And I think these LLMs are really good at these simple like coding tasks. And it was like my least favorite part of being an IC, which is why I'm now going back to doing some analysis, because like I can trust that as long as I give it the right tables, it can just write that SQL. And
Right. Well, and it's so easy to read too. I mean, SQL
yeah.
is so easy to read, so you can eyeball check it pretty easily.
Yeah, you can eyeball check it, especially, and then like if you have the context of like the results, you can like sanity check the numbers. By far, that has been a big win for me. Like writing analyses, I think we're trying to get AI to be better at. I'm even trying to train it using my tone and things like that. There's some progress there, but like I think for sure like writing SQL and pulling numbers is something that has saved us so much headache.
Yeah. So you would see that it's kind of like remove all these like not fun jobs from the software engineer job or data scientist job for sure. Do you see a drawback of using that as well?
I think there is a drawback if whether it's the company or the industry or the world like doesn't think more about what is next, right? So like let's talk about it from my company's example. If we are no longer writing these queries, building these pipelines and dashboards, that is part of our like performance evaluation process, right? It's like in our, hey, if you're a senior data scientist or you're a junior data scientist, like this is what you're expected to do and things like that. So if you don't update those and automate this stuff away, it starts getting really confusing. People are like, am I adding value? People get laid off, get fired, etc., right? But if a company is good about like quickly adapting and being like, well, this is the bar now. And I think the hard part is usually it means the bar is higher, right?
Yeah.
And I think as long as there is still, like at least in my role, it's hard for me to see what it's like at other companies. It feels like there's always more work to do than we have time to do. So it feels like a win right now. And it's like, we don't have the headcount. They're not letting us hire more people in this environment or whatever. So it's just like, okay, like we can do a little bit more. We can make better decisions, more decisions. But if it ever gets to a point where we're a big bloated company again, and, you know, now all of a sudden there's not enough work to do and that's where the whole existential thing comes in, right? So
So
I think
you're
yeah.
yeah. Go ahead. I was
No,
going
no.
to say
I was just saying. I think there's a lot of responsibility around, and this is why like Anthropic is a good example of like a company that they're not perfect by any means, but they like think about this right when they're building their things of like, hey, warning, like, what is it like? This is gonna, this could replace these kinds of jobs. Like, you guys need to think about this too, versus just like releasing into the wild and seeing what
yeah.
happens to the world, right?
But in terms, for example, your company, and we can also think about it in the trading, your previous trading career and the trading field in general. Like you're describing these algorithms that you were writing and things like that. We already had so much automatization in tradings when like I read recently that like Wall Street like is just Wall Street in name. Usually everything is done through computing in New Jersey with like big like data centers and things like that. No one is doing like we see on TV these people talking in on Wall Street and things like that. No one is doing trade like this. Everything is already automatized and computed. So the AI effect on that would be, don't you think it would be like less demand of humans and people, and basically everything is going to be like written, like there's no way that we still have the same people working in the same domain. Like there's absolutely a change in the work for trading. Do you think first that you think it's already changing? You think that like entry level people are like 10 plus years experimented people that are going to do less and less of the technical fields because AI is here? But also like, does it make it safe? We talked about like all these dangers. Like I'm always wondering, do we have enough people checking what is produced? And maybe this is a new field of like, being a manager, I mean, you manage other AI agents. So
Yeah, they
what's your
always talk about this. I personally, they're like, "Hey, Jack, in your future, your team's gonna be 5 humans and 5 agents," and I'm like, I do not want to equate the two. They're like, but that's what it makes it sound like, right? But yeah, I
yeah.
think it's a really good question, and it's very like, whether it's trading or tech or anywhere, I think ultimately what does not go away from all of this, and I'll explain why in trading because maybe it's not so clear in trading, but what does not go away in all this is the humanness of it, is of all of it. So in tech, it's like, okay, what product are you building? What do people want, like, to use in their work or day-to-day lives, things like that. Like the strategy, I think that doesn't go away. And I think like for younger people and for people entering the workforce, I do think there is more of a, I think being strong in terms of like business and like business strategy, like things like that, and just like having good business intuition will go a long way for a lot of young people. And there's no, but I wish I was like 21 right now, like learning about this, because before I was just learning all this theory, but now it's like you could build something in a weekend,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
And you could build it, ship it, have it be live and critiqued by people on the internet, and learn so much, right?
Yeah. You can
And
be
I
a
think
CEO of one, a party of one, a company of one, and have like products
exactly.
already.
So that's why it's like if you're a company hiring, it's almost like, well, if you can do that, maybe that should be the bar. It's like if you're not doing that, if you're just like, I don't know, like in your books, like learning knowledge, like you're at a disadvantage, right? And then in trading, this is actually an interesting one. It's like, well, how does that affect trading? Because trading ultimately, and this I think is true even outside of trading, a lot of like capitalism, in a sense, is just game theory. It's like, some of it is zero sum, some of it is not. There's value creation sometimes, but a lot of times it's like it's competition, right? And again, this is why some traders like to play poker. Like, will poker be ever AI'd away? Maybe, but like there's a lot of like nuances, the humanness of poker, right? Bluffing and things like that. Trading is the exact same thing. Like before, it was like, oh, you can see who else is trading against you. You know that's a human or an algorithm. even if it's an algorithm, a human has developed it. And now it's like, even if the algorithm was developed by AI, like the human told the AI what to do. So it's like the game theory in the trading is like, how do you like take advantage of their stupid AI to make my AI faster so I can make money off of them, right?
I
So, and
see.
there's still like humanness there.
Yeah, so it's like a combat of like AI machines, one against the other, and we try to guess the principles that the builder of this AI gave it, so we can have our kind of setting beat their settings.
Because before it was very deterministic. Like this, I mean, again, this is why I love trading. It's like it's interesting to talk about, but you think about like what value this is adding to the world, nothing. But like, it's like you can bait someone else's algorithm to like fire an order in this thing by doing this. Once you figure that out, you just like take advantage of them, and like their algorithm kind of goes rogue because you figured out their loophole, and then you make a bunch of money off of them. They fix it, and just there's this back and forth battle, right? When it was very deterministic. Now it's like, well, it's not deterministic because it's LLMs, but you can still, like, as you know, you can make an LLM say 1 + 1 = 3 if you try hard enough.
Yeah. Interesting.
This is kind of a question from the chat, but also something that I think just comes up a lot, that was kind of mentioned, but I'm curious what you think about it. There's a lot of, you'll hear people in the news and people just talking about AI, talk about like, yeah, well, right now we have a generation of employees, right, who are trained. They are like you. They have an education. They have this experience. You can do the work by hand. You don't have to. You can use tools to automate things and to make stuff easier. But if you look at some SQL code and you understand, like assuming you understand it, you can look at it and say, oh, well, that's clearly stupid. This is clearly wrong. Generations move really slowly. Is the next generation of employees, if we move towards everyone needs to be using AI tools, everyone needs to be automating, is there going to be a generation of employees who don't have that foundational skill of they can use an AI to make all the SQL code that you might need, but they have no hands-on ability to look and say like, oh, this code is wrong. Oh, this is an obvious mistake. Like, or do you think that we are going to lose that? Are you seeing that at all? Because I think that's kind of a big fear, especially in educational circles, that comes up.
Like the less you use the knowledge, there's like an atrophy of like in your brain. You don't know it anymore, and then you use it less and less. You lose this knowledge.
For sure, and like even with the event where we met at, like the president of Princeton talked about this, and it's like this is a problem that higher education is wrestling with right now, which is like, how do they teach? How do they get people to still learn? I think Princeton's a good example because they pride themselves on their students like just learning so much about everything.
Resilience of learning and adapting.
It's like, well, and I think he mentioned like, are they going to have to go back to oral exams to make sure people learn, or blue books, which I had to look up. I guess it's like I'm too young for that.
That's for written exams. Yeah, we did
did
those
exams.
in law school. Everything was in blue books.
So I think like, so the education field definitely has a strong impact on like what happens here. And I think I'm hoping that the leaders here still care about people learning. Now, I think it's possible that with AI, people can learn more efficiently. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But as long as they still learn to the same degree. And I think we've already seen that happen with like computers and whatever. Like before, it probably would take you this long to take calculus, to learn the principles of calculus. You do have to do some practice problems, but like maybe with computers, it's like you can be just as good at calculus with less time, right? And I'm hoping that with AI, that's the direction we go in versus we just don't learn it and just make AI do all of it.
My personal school experience of this is, well, you won't always have a calculator, right? You have to learn how to do this by hand. Well, it turns out you will, but that does not negate the value of having to gain the understanding of doing things by hand, like understanding how something is done by hand.
I never learned like basic arithmetic, my multiplication tables and things like that, like I think that my life would be harder, like my day to day. right? And it's like, is that what everything is going to become, right?
And I recently heard, I think the sister of Anthropic's founder, who has a major in English, and she said that like she was saying like she's very proud of her like humanities background, because she said like this is something that like AI and other models would not get, this like creativity and these things that comes from the humanities side, that is not technical, but it's something that it's worth developing, because this is hard to emulate. Like I can emulate like, any like technical solution with logics and algorithms, but like the social part, the humanity part of humans is hard and harder. So this is kind of what I see as like something that is staying with us and is give us like the edge compared to machines.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why it's like, that's why this new generation is, I think they have it right. They're so against AI in the arts, because one, it's bad. Like it's not good, high quality. Like everyone can tell, right? And then two, it's AI trying to do something that it's not. I don't know if it's ever going to be like the humanness of music, of art. Like how can it? Yeah.
No, for sure. I want to use your economic and trading brain for the AI kind of movement right now, and ask you about the AI bubble. Because like, you know, we are seeing this like, and it's super, I think your background in trading, I think is important, because you are in tech and you had this trading experience, and you've seen what the, you know, imperialism and this capitalism and this how it happens in the market. What do you think about these these crazy investments that are happening in many AI companies, but also between, like this circle economy thing, like Jack is borrowing money from Jill, and then Jill is borrowing to Tom, and Tom is giving to Jack, and they are like all saying like we are raising money, but it's borrowed money from others that are borrowing money from others anyway, and this like overhyping thing that is happening. Like if you have a pulse and a company that has AI in it, you're getting millions. That's how it feels here in the Bay Area, at least. What do you think in terms of like, are we going to see like the biggest crash like we've seen in the Great Recession in 2008, or it is going just to be a cleanup or like an adjustment, and then it keeps growing? I'm curious, not in a sense of like, oh, tell me the secret and I'm going to invest in whatever.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
going
not
to tell you
looking
exactly when to sell.
or poly market, I'm going to bet it on the poly market or something. No, but in general, how are we doing with this, like in this economy? Like, how do you see red flags? Do you see an unreasonable thing like you were describing crypto and others, or like, no, this is like really solid and legit? Like, what's your take
I think
on it?
living in San Francisco, like it's funny because like in the Bay Area is like obviously a lot of people work in tech and whatever, but San Francisco in particular, I live in downtown San Francisco.
Yeah.
It is. There's definitely red flags. Like a couple of things came to mind. You mentioned this already, but like I don't know if viewers and you guys have heard about like the whole Allbirds thing. You hear about that?
No.
Where Allbirds was this like
the shoe thing that
the shoe. Yeah, so they made shoes for last decade or so for like kind of like upper middle class people. This like direct to consumer shoe,
and then they decided
like many of those companies
do AI.
Yeah, they fizzled out. It was on the brink of bankruptcy, and they're like, we're rebranding. We're now called New Bird AI, and we are going to deal with compute hardware.
Jeez.
And then their stock price went up by like 600% in one day or something.
Exactly what I'm saying. Like, wow, how do you justify that? Again, someone who's making shoes is doing AI, like how fuzzy and unclear it is.
And then I looked into that.
like
Yeah.
hypes. Like, what the hell?
I looked into that, and actually, like, there's similar things happened, both in the crypto boom, maybe 10, 12 years ago, and then also in the dot-com boom. In the crypto boom, I didn't know about this at the time, but Long Island Iced Tea, I think you guys have heard about this. They became a crypto company because they were on the brink of bankruptcy in like 2015. Their stock price also shot up like 10x, and then they all got sued for insider trading because, obviously. And it's like, and then I think in the dot-com, this is when I was a kid, but it's like things were happening where people are like, I'm now blank.com.
Dog.com, cat.com, like anything.com. Yeah, sure.
So I think the warning signs are still definitely there. And then I think you even see it in the day-to-day life. Like I have friends from all over the country and all over the world, and it does feel like in general these days people are a little bit like tighter with their purse strings. Like people are like, oh, the economy, blah blah blah, like trying to like save a little bit more, spend a little bit less. In San Francisco or in the Bay Area, it's probably like one of the few places where it's like diverging. Yeah. You have people like, even people like me, like working in traditional tech, who are part of that crowd. We're like, our stock prices are plummeting, like we're not making as much money as before, let's cut back on spending. And then like the AI people are just like, house went up for $3 million, they bought it for $6 million. Like, it's like insanity in the Bay Area of like the divergence of like the two societies. And this is what people are afraid of with AI, is like, you have like a ruling class and then everyone is like jobless and has to depend on the government for money or whatever, right? And I'm seeing that, and it's really scary, but at the same time it's like, this can't be real, like it can't last. Yeah. And so I also don't think it's like a sound like trajectory for forever. I don't know what a bubble popping would look like either. I don't mind it, honestly, because I feel like it's just getting too ridiculous right now. And but especially with like arms race with the LLMs, like the hardware, the other stuff that's I don't know if you guys have heard about this. It's like there's these like random companies, 100-year companies in Japan, whose stock prices are going up 50% because they realized they could produce some product. So I'll give you an example. What was it? Todo. They make toilets. Good toilets, really good toilets.
The Japanese know them.
Yeah, they've been around for like 100 years, and they realized there's a byproduct of their process they use to make their like really high quality ceramic that can be used for like packaging GPUs or something, like to make sure they don't like overheat or whatever. And then NVIDIA and Apple, whatever, they're like, okay, we need this. And then that division of their company is like feeling like 50% of Toto's like revenue growth, and their stock price is skyrocketing. There's a few other these kind of companies, and it's just like, this is crazy. It's actual insanity.
I thought you were saying they realized that the board that you program to clean you in the toilet, they're putting LLMs and AI in it.
No, they're not. They're not. Yeah, and it's
So
like it seems like
optimize your cleaning.
Yeah, it's these physical goods companies who had nothing to do with AI. The other one that I thought was really funny is, you may not have heard of a company, Ajinomoto, but they make like all the MSG for the entire world. Like that's in the food, right? But a byproduct of them, they're making MSG is also something that's used for like packaging AI chips or like make sure they don't short circuit or something. And I think what I was reading was like, they were a bottleneck for Apple for some of their hardware that they were releasing because these Japanese companies, they're so good at what they do and no one else can do it. So because Ajinomoto, all they do is make MSG, they don't have a big factory. They could only produce so much of this stuff. Apple was like, hurry up. Like, I can't produce enough chips because you guys are too small. And it's like, these are the telltale signs that I'm just like, it's getting out of hand.
But here's another question. Again, Google, this Apple, at least AI is not the only thing that they do. Like, you still have other service, like Amazon has this AWS, or Google has, or Apple has these computers and products. So they are not completely like in AI, only AI things. So I understand that if there is a bubble, if there is something, these companies are just fine. because they have other things.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the let's say it's a bubble. At some point it's going to burst. What happened to all these people who are investing all this money and all these like companies, like you said, Allbird AI, whatever the hell they are
And
doing?
what happened to their $6 million houses that they mortgaged?
Yes, yeah. So are we going to see like a civil war after that? Just because like everyone is so into it. Like I'm really curious, like, you know, in 2008 there was, at the end it was a bailout, right? It was in the movie.
Yeah.
They explained
Yeah, it
the government decided who is going to survive and who is going to die, basically. So you think it is going to be another bailout? Like how these things would resolve?
I don't know if it'll be a bailout, but I do think the governments of the world, this is a worldwide issue, have to do something. This is not like, this is what I meant. Like, I do think some of these companies who are like, we made this cool thing, let's release it into the wild and see how it affects all of society. It's a little bit irresponsible because
Agreed.
then the governments and the leaders of the world have to like play catch up to like figure out how to deal with this. So they have to do it. Like that's the solution. Like whether it's bailout, whether it's like regulation, things like that. I don't think the governments around the world have done much in this regard, but it has to happen. And if it doesn't, I think there could be like a lot of unrest.
Yeah.
This is maybe not something that you're in a position to have a strong opinion about, but do you think that there is room for consumer pressure to affect any of this stuff? Because like I don't know, for your job at Atlassian and like with Trello specifically, I know you guys are implementing, you know, tools, features, part of your products that are AI powered, or that, you know, we talked about the robo thing. Do you get a substantial amount of pushback of people who are like, how do I just turn this off? I don't want, how do I not have that? Like, do you think that sort of pressure could affect this on a larger scale, or I don't know, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think it's actually a pretty sad state of like the tech industry right now. And it's something that I'm like, remember I left it trading because I was like, what meaning am I adding to anything? And going to tech, I was like, hey, I'm building something that like people are helping people be more productive and things like that. Great. I actually think it's like going away from that direction now. You know, a lot of the industries, including Atlassian, like, and I can say this because like we know we're doing this. It's like I was talking to one of my more senior VP stakeholders, and he acknowledges this too, where it's like we are now building for what we think people will want. We are no longer building for what people currently want. And we will get a lot of pushback, and we have gotten a lot of pushback. Customers being like, why did you enable this for me? And like, why, how do I turn it off and whatever? And we take that and we're just like, whatever, because, and this is again, capitalism at its finest. Every company is building for what they think people will want in the future. It's like when we invented cars or smartphones or something, right? Okay. But it's like, whoever wins, wins a lot. And if everyone is right and people do eventually want this in their lives, you don't want to be second, and you don't want to be not in the race even, right?
So it's FOMO, fearing of
these companies to build all these things despite the customer feedback.
Do you think I saw it was, I don't even know if it was really journalism, it was like a think piece on this. Do you have any sense of how tech companies or AI companies are responding to public sentiment on AI? Because from my perspective, it seems obvious. A lot of people, like most people I talk to, are anti-AI to some degree. That, you know, a lot of them acknowledge they're really useful tools, but it doesn't, you know, generative art shouldn't really be a thing. It doesn't belong in certain. I think the sentiment is very negative on all these places and implementations where AI is popping up. And I saw a think piece that was like, oh, it's just a marketing problem. We just need to explain to these, this uneducated normal people why this is actually so good. They just don't understand. Is that really like a sentiment coming from, I don't know if you could talk about Atlassian, but like from the industry or from AI?
Yeah.
Because that seems crazy to me. I don't think that that's the problem. I think that's a complete misread. But
there's a big problem with like, there's definitely a bubble in the tech area, in the Bay Area, in tech and things like that, where people think that, whatever the new technology is the savior of the world. And it's actually one of the reasons, it's like one of the downsides about living here. Like, there's something I was thinking about over the last few months. It's like, imagine you have like a chart that plots like AI adoption across the entire world. It is going up, there's no doubt. It's very small. It's like 1-2%, like not even 1%, depending on like how you're counting. It's like, but it is growing gradually, right? What does it feel like the AI adoption in the world is if you live in the Bay Area? Here's what the graph looks like. It looks like this, like up and like it's very volatile, and it's like it's higher. And why is it so volatile? Because whenever someone creates something that's like this impressive technology, we're like, oh my god, everyone's gonna start using it. And then like, oh, there's a bug or whatever, oh, it comes back down. So it's like living in the Bay Area, you're like riding the waves of all this.
Yeah.
And it makes you really like nearsighted to what's actually going on in the world. But my reporter on my team, the one who I said is really big on AI adoption, lives in Arkansas. He got a haircut in his barber, and he asked his barber, like, what do you know about AI? And he's like, I don't know, like, is that like Chat PGT or whatever? and my teammate was like, well, actually, like, do you search on Google? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, well, actually, Google will probably summarize things for you in AI. And the guy was like, I didn't know that. I don't care, right? And it's like, when you're working in these places, you don't understand that is what the real world is like, right? And I do think there's a lot of like, oh, it's just better marketing, but I also think there's a nuance. It's like, as someone who works in it, I do think it's really good at a lot of things, and I do think there is some parts of it that is a marketing problem. But the part that's irresponsible is saying that it's a marketing problem and not talking about the existential stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and saying like, yes, this is for sure a good thing. It's going to make your work and whatever things easier, and I completely agree with that. But then ignoring the existential stuff, when in reality, that's what all the civil unrest is about, essentially.
Yeah, well, I think that fuels it to some level too, right? There are other examples of this that have happened with developments of technology and stuff, where I think like I said, a lot of people are anti-AI in specific applications or in specific arenas or even just, specific companies or whatever. But it's hard to not acknowledge that it is really good as a tool, that there's a lot of value that could be had from it. But when CEOs of these companies that are leading the AI tech rollout are just like, oh, this is the best thing ever. Oh, it's only good. This is going to revolutionize your life. Every day you're going to be, you're going to be led around by your personal AI. It's going to make it so you can live the perfect life. Like that sort of disconnect from reality, I think, makes every like normal people out in the world feel like, okay, well, that's just a lie. Like either he doesn't understand where I'm coming from, this person who's saying this stuff, or they're just trying to, this is just someone else trying to sell me some stuff that is only going to cost me problems or only going to cost me money or whatever. Like it drives the skepticism, right? Because it feels crazy compared to real life.
Yeah. It reminds me, one of the leaders in my company wrote this really good blog post internally about like this essentially, and the way he put it was like, in his daily life, when he uses AI, it feels good, because what does he use it for? He's watching the Olympics and he's like, why is this country so good at speed skating? Let me go ask ChatGPT. Oh, that's really interesting. I have learned something. I feel good. Or like, he alluded to the I do think this is one thing that ChatGPT does like pretty well. It's like their commercials, right? Where it's like real life. It's like, how do I fix this thing in my car? And it's like, yeah, that's like, AI feels good when you're like using that to like help with your daily life, solve problems. And then he was like, why does it feel so bad at work? in these enterprise settings, and it's like, it's because we keep talking about like agents and like how like you have an org chart and it's like a human and an agent next to each other and this feeling of being replaced and whatever. And his conclusion of his post was, whatever company figures out how to make like enterprise AI or whatever feel good is going to win the whole thing, and he hopes that it's us. But like that, none of it feels good right now from like a like top down perspective of like how of selling this to people. It's just like people are very just like blind to like the, you know, oh, is it going to replace me kind of thing. Whereas like the actual day-to-day use, a lot of times it does feel good, like the most simple use cases, but they're not really like latching onto that much.
Right, but it's also because the risk levels are different, right? I mean, at work, the risk of trusting an answer that it gives you is so much higher than knowing why the speed skaters were good at what they're doing, right? Like, so it's inconsequential if there is something wrong in that scenario. And so I think people are treating it also completely differently in these scenarios, also just because of that extra risk.
Yeah, like my life would be so much better if like all I used AI for was like to answer random questions that pop into my head. Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
Because you believe them even if they're wrong, and who cares?
that's true.
There's no big consequences, life or death consequences and things like that.
You might sound silly at a party, but that's about it.
If we don't have more question, Mandy, can you talk a little bit about the real rating? Because I always want to kind of like, promote it, but also have what our guests think about it and how can we implement it.
Sure. So, one of our programs, which is a response to AI being released just generally to the public, like you were talking about, and we don't really have the tools to be able to identify human versus non-human content when you come into it in the wild, and especially on platforms like social media or other things where normal people who don't understand or don't have the skills or even want to tell the difference necessarily, or that the AI is just getting so good that it is hard for humans to identify the difference between AI or not. It's a self-reported system of how much AI has gone into whatever content, product, written object that you're using. So like, for example, in a classroom, you could say this level is the level that you're allowed to use on this project, and you can't use past that, because like we've talked about here today, all uses of AI are not equal. Just writing one single prompt and getting out the answer is not the same as some of these other lower risk applications, and actually like tooling and automatic spell check and things people don't even consider AI, which are AI and are going to continue to be more AI as we go forward. So it's sort of based on, there's a similar 0 to 5 scale for autonomous vehicles that they rate about like how autonomous the vehicle is. And so we had this idea that it's sort of similar in terms of how much AI was used, how autonomous, if you will, the AI is in whatever you're creating. So just to give you a few levels, obviously 0 is you've not used any tooling, pretty much in the dark ages with a candle and a quill. Level 1 is you're using automated tools, things that cut stuff out automatically, things that spell check, these automated basic things that people are super low risk and people consider not AI right now. 2 is for like brainstorming, so just bouncing things off of the wall pretty much, but you can't copy anything from it, of course, because if you copy something for it, then it's a level, even something small, it becomes a level 3. And then 3 through 5 are just like the degree to which you are relying on the AI, whether it's something minor, major, or pretty much the whole thing. And so we're trying to get this adopted because we imagine a world where social media, you could maybe filter your feed by what levels of AI you're willing to interact with, so you don't end up with a bunch of AI art or a bunch of political stuff that is AI, that you know, things going on in the world that aren't real. And so it is self-reported because the technology isn't really there to be able to identify it via automatic methods, and people will always be able to skirt that if they want. So our idea is to have public pressure really drive that.
Crowd kind of pressure from the bottom up. And she mentioned social media, but it could be like a piece, a book, an article, a research article, or an algorithm, like an academic algorithm. We talk in terms of like academia, but also like it's not, the goal is just to in the transparency domain. We
Yeah.
always ask for transparency. Like, we went to Princeton. You remember the ethic class that we had, where like you had to, as a scientist, whatever research you produce, you have to give your sources, you have to give everything that you did. And this is like the basics of like you putting something to the world, is like to give your sources and your data and say, this is what I did, to be able to be like, people can like follow and reproduce your research. So in this term, what would you say, because you are again in a tech company and in a managerial kind of situation, would you see something like this happening in a tech company, in terms of like the product that internally or externally as a product to the public, or just like as colleagues working and like, be transparent about like what they did and what they used, like how much, I know sometimes it's taboo, but like, how much cloud you use or how much whatever you used, and be transparent about that. What's your take in that?
I think like I definitely think there's a lot of value here. I think the value is different for a B2B company like Atlassian, whereas B2C companies like Meta, like I'm thinking about social media. I actually think there's a lot of value here, not just from, and I think this is how, like, if I had to give an elevator pitch to sell this to someone to implement it, like from ultimately, like selling it to the public is not hard. It's how do you sell it to the companies, right? And think about it, like social media, there's a two-sided problem right now where, like, on one hand, like social media, their success metrics, again from a data science perspective, it's like usually it's engagement, right? So the more users using it, to what depth, how many posts are they posting, liking, etc. And I don't know the numbers, I don't work at Meta or whatever, but like my guess is that AI has actually increased engagement because there's more posts, it's easier to make posts. There's rage bait, like fake news
Shock
generated by
value,
AI,
yeah.
right? But also, like, if you own one of these platforms, you do care about like how, to some degree, like there's like a safety team or whatever, right? And the problem is everyone knows right now, you open up Instagram, open whatever, like you don't know what's AI and whatever. And the way to market this is like, there are people who don't mind certain levels of AI. And I think that's actually, and if you put that out there, it just gives everyone exactly what they want. Because right now the uproar, I think a good one is like music videos. I think some people are like, oh my God, did they use AI in that? Boycott, boycott, boycott. And it's like, if you're the music producing company, you're like, okay, how can I like, can I like slap a label on this and just to not get boycotted? Like, right? Like maybe they only use it for spell check or whatever it is, right? And I think that's where there's a two-sided benefit to this. It's not just like the people who get the transparency. It's the producers of content can release their content at the level that is transparent and therefore get the reception that they deserve, positive or negative, right? And I think that's a really, really important part, because I do think there's a lot of scrutiny and skepticism around content right now, and I'm guessing there's a lot of people who don't deserve all of the uproar, who are just really good like Photoshop people or whatever, right? And I think these are the people who benefit so much from a system like this.
Yeah, and we really think that like it has to come from the public. It has to come from consumers, because I don't think if like the consumers don't demand changes, the big tech companies would have the like feeling or feeling the urgency to change it to whatever. For them, it's not
Yeah.
like, even as you were saying, like sometimes it's not like what the people want, but what they think in their bubble, what people want. So
Yeah.
yeah.
We appreciate it a lot. So we are running short on time. We've really enjoyed talking seriously with you, but I have to ask you before you go, because you were talking before and you love video games, and we'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. So I grew up in the, I guess, the Super Nintendo generation, but I didn't really get into video games. I think like PS1 was my first console. My parents bought it for me at a garage sale, along with like 20 discs of random games most of them were terrible. And then I really got into video games in middle school and high school when me and a few of my friends, we were part of that early group of people playing Super Smash Bros. Melee competitively, which is still going on in 2026 apparently.
Yep.
But back then it was very grassroots. You go to like local tournaments and things like that. So that was really fun. It was like competitive. It was like we were really good and all these things. And
Who was your character?
I mean, boring stuff like Fox, Marth, etc. Like we were playing to win, not to have fun.
Nice.
But and then the other thing I've always been really into is rhythm games. I actually do think the game is like a dying genre, unfortunately, because like everything's like virtual now. Like rhythm games is all about the hardware, right? So I was huge into Guitar Hero. I played back then. Like there was a website. I mean, I think it still exists where you like post your phone picture of your score, and to validate your score, to like rank your scores for Guitar Hero songs. And I was like top ranked in a few songs. Played some Rock Band as well. And like that's like it's literally dead. Like Guitar Hero is dead, as far as I know, except for like at some random arcade with like controllers that barely
Or
work.
parties. Yeah.
There's a community of people who are still like modding, and I think there are new controllers, but yeah, it's definitely not as robust as it used to be. Have you ever tried Clone Hero, which is just like
I have.
yeah.
You can like pick up your keyboard.
My favorite rhythm game is Rhythm Heaven Fever. Have you played that one?
No.
Okay, it's too obscure.
It's much more like mini game rhythm games. It's kind of silly.
It has very silly bits
and
that live in my head.
Have you done any VR gaming? Because there are some
the
rhythm
other
games
thing
in VR that are interesting.
Before VR, I played a lot of DDR as well, which I think was a really good form of exercise, like Dance Dance Revolution. And then again, very expensive, like hardware. Like you can buy a dance mat online. It's probably like $500 of the good ones these days. And then Oculus came out with Beat Saber, and I didn't like anything about the Oculus, but I think again this is crazy times back then. Like I was given one just like to start at Atlassian because that was too much money today. They gave every employee an Oculus to mess with, and I was like, I hate all this,
in
but
the
I will play
metaverse.
Beat Saber. Which actually was a really good form of exercise as well. So maybe I'll pull it out again and play some Beat Saber these days. But besides that, I think like even with like the streaming community, I was really active on Twitch in some communities during the pandemic. I even considered starting a Twitch channel before work got busy. I've played League of Legends since it was in like beta, like on and off. I'm part of that generation. I think will just play League of Legends literally for the rest of their lives. And I still play TFT. It's a lot less intense and a lot less toxic and more just like a vibes game. which that's probably the most recent game that I've been playing. And then there are a few single player franchises that I will probably follow to the end of my days or until they go bankrupt. And I will play all the games that come out of them. And it's like Fire Emblem, Persona, Final Fantasy, like these big franchises have just made really good single player games. So I don't know what the next one will be. I think all of them are kind of like waiting and building their next game right now. So we'll see.
That's a solid list of games. I think Eric would approve of almost all of those. One of our staff members, big rhythm game guy, big Persona guy. The place of Cincy there's a bunch of more obscure rhythm game hardware and an all-night free play pass for $10. And it's my favorite place right now.
Oh, I need to go to Cincinnati.
Let's see. So I'm checking.
Yeah, we maybe have time for one short question, chat. One short question,
Yeah,
if you
one
have
short
one.
question, chat, before we wrap up. Because they were into the gaming rabbit hole, and then we're going to use them. Okay. I don't understand what is this qubit machine.
That's video game
Uh,
stuff.
I thought they were talking about qubits. Okay, no.
No.
Just
Okay, well-
obscure games.
With that, then, chat, let's thank you so much, Jack, for joining us. You've given us a lot to think about, and we've really appreciated spending time talking to you here.
No, this was a very life-giving conversation, even though we didn't solve humanity or anything, but I think.
Oh, we didn't? Man.
But I think it's important to, these are the kind of conversations that, and many of you remember, like, I feel like in the dorms in college, like we would get deep into midnight like this, and I'm sure this is what they're talking about these days, actually. And I think now that you're like out in the real world, we have like responsibilities, families, like all these things. It's a really nice treat sometimes to have these like engaging conversations about things that are too big for us, but also things that we still care about.
And I honestly think like you and others that came gave us kind of hope that it's not only us who thinks like that, but people who are in these like big roles in big tech who are having like these doubts, conversation, worries, and thoughts that are important for our lives. So it is very important to kind of like show that it's not only us, but like many people are thinking like that. And yeah, hopefully we'll have better outcomes for later. That's what we hope. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jack, again, for giving us some time. And Bob, you can do your wrap up.
Yeah. Thank you from myself as well, Jack. This was really great interview. And you can hang out for this part, but we sort of just have an ending thing. And I know you said you had a pretty hard out, so no worries. But chat, make sure that you check out all of the stuff on our website. It's constantly being worked on. Some parts of it are fresh or will be fresh very soon. A lot of hard work going into it. And specifically, you should check out realgoodai.org/shop or store. Probably either one, because we have lots of different links. But check out the merch. We have some cool merch options, which are fairly new if you haven't seen them yet. But there's also a newsletter you can sign up for. You can check out our social feeds and get to our social media on the website. To make sure you're following those if you want to see more of Mandy or more of the best clips from these interview streams or whatever else goes out there. It's allowed to be funny too. Sometimes it's silly. Make sure you check out the volunteer groups if you want to get involved. There are a number of different volunteer groups. You can totally get involved with the organization, or you could just donate if you want to support what we're doing. Research is expensive, and for $2 you can buy a minute of research. Maybe you'll buy the minute that changes the whole world, or at least changes AI, which is hopefully not the entire world, but the sort of direction it's going. I guess we'll see. We'll find out together. But yeah, just check it out. There's lots of great stuff on the website. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you're following the channels. And in particular, make sure that you're following the Real Good channel, because a lot of you probably already following me, and that's very kind of you. Twitch.tv/RealGoodAI. There will be streams where I'm not here, and you will miss them if you're not following them. I'm going to raid my Twitch over to the Real Good Twitch to give you a chance to follow. We're just going to sort of hang out for a minute. But yeah, thank you for being here, chat. Join the raid. I'm going to click the button here in a second. And thanks again to Jack. And thanks for hanging out during the whole ending spiel.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, here goes the raid chat. See you on the cool kid side. Maybe. There it is. Oh, I forgot I set that up ahead of time. By raid over to Real Good, I of course meant I'm raiding to the Real Good democracy time. They're liberating people in Helldivers too. I forgot I set that up. I was like, I set up the raid already. It's great. Anyway, go watch Cadet Liberty.
You're good.
That's what I meant.
The Real Good Regiment. They're raising
Real Good
money
Regiment.
for us, so enjoy them.
They're fun. They do light role playing. They play Helldivers. They raise money for Real Good. They're also, I think, all volunteers or mostly volunteers. So they know things. You can talk to them about what that's like. Anyway, we're out here, chat. Have a good rest of your Thursday, and we'll see you next week with the usual team stream.